Hey guys, I'm T and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, we make trendy and fun crochet tutorials twice a week, and if you haven't already, smash that like button, drop a comment down below, and subscribe to join in on the fun. In today's tutorial, we're making a lovely vest using a new stitch. This texture delight is our first time using the almond stitch for a make, but certainly will not be our last. This classy vest is perfect on its own, or atop something else for a little extra pizzazz, but either way, there's no going wrong with this one. Speaking of, there's no going wrong when you're watching a TCD DIY video, except maybe an endless make list. You see, we have hundreds of modern crochet tutorials and patterns with even more dropping twice weekly, so consider clicking the bell to subscribe and you'll never miss an upload. Also, do me a huge favor and give this video a big thumbs up if you like it, or 2 thumbs down if you don't. Either way, it's a great way to show support so I can keep putting out free tutorials every Wednesday and Sunday. Now it's time to go on the show, so without further ado, for today's project, any category 4 yarn will work, but I used a total of 310 grams of yarn, and that's 700 yards if you're stateside. As for tools, a 5 and 5.5 millimeter hook, scissors, stitch markers, and a tape measure. There is a written pattern down below. Use offer code TCDDIY for a discount off any $9.99 plus order, and enter this pattern giveaway by telling us how many crochet hooks you have. I have 2 full sets of hooks, so I have roughly 30 hooks in total. Details for the giveaway down below. We're using 3 stitches for this project, and they'll be as follows. Chain, slip stitch, single crochet, and half double crochet. This tutorial is made for a size small, but you can adjust it for your size, and we explain how to in the video, so let's get started. Getting this top started, we're all going to grab our category 4 yarn and make a slip knot. Then we're all going to grab our 5.5 millimeter hook and start off by making a chain that is in multiples of 8 that starts at the top of our shoulder down to where like the bottom of this top to be, keeping in mind that we will have a bottom band as well, so at your waist or down to your hips. I'd like for mine to be down to my hips, so I'm going to start by making a chain of 72, and that's just about 21 inches or 53 centimeters, but I already have this section all finished up, so I'm just going to be doing a small sample size with you. Now once we have our chain that is in multiples of 8, we're going to chain an additional 4. This additional chain 4 still counts as our base chain. So from where we're at, just another 1, 2, 3, 4. And now that we have the entirety of our base chain completed, we're going to get started on our first almond stitch row. So block off that last chain and do a chain 1. Then into that second chain from our hook, or into that chain that we blocked off, we're going to insert with a slip stitch. So bring your hook down and into that chain, yarn over and gently pull through both of those loops. And that is our first slip stitch. Now for our almond stitch, our sets are going to be worked in sets of 4. So we're going to be doing 3 more slip stitches for a total of 4 stitches for this row so far. So there's my first. Into my next, insert with another slip stitch. There's 2. Into my next, insert, pull through everything, there's 3, and then into my next, insert, pull through everything, and there's 4. Now, as a really quick tip when it comes to doing our slip stitches, we all want to make sure that we're not tugging too tightly after we finish our stitch, otherwise the following row is going to be way too tight to work into. But once we all have our 4 slip stitches, we're going to do 4 half double crochets now. So yarn over. Into that next chain, insert with your first half double. Like I said, we need a total of 4, so into that next chain, insert with another half double, there's my second, into the next, there's my third half double, and then into the next, there is my 4th half double crochet. Now we should all have a total of 8 stitches so far for this row. And all we're going to do is basically repeat this to reach the end of the row, so let's just do the next set of stitches together. So right after our half double crochets, we're going to be doing 4 slip stitches. So into that next chain, insert, gently, remember, pull through. There's my first, into that next, gently pull through, there's 2. Gently pull through, there's 3. Gently pull through, there is 4. Now we're going to do our half double crochets, and they are worked in sets of 4 again, so yarn over. Into that next chain with your first half double. Next chain with your second half double. Next chain with your third. Next chain with your 4th. And that's it. We're just going to continue to alternate between 4 slip stitches and 4 half double crochets until we reach the end of the row. And just as a really quick tip, we should all end on the same set of stitches that we started this row off with. So as an example, we started this row off with 4 slip stitches. We are now going to end the row with 4 slip stitches as well. Then I'll meet you back at the end of the row. Alright, so we are back. Our first row is complete. Now this is going to be a 4-row repeat, so let's get started on the following row. So we're all going to chain 1 and flip our work. Now every even number row is going to be an exact repeat of our previous row. So since we started with slip stitches, we're now going to start this even number row, or our row 2, with more slip stitches, but now for the rest of the piece, it's going to be worked within the back loops. So just to do the first set of stitches together, into the last stitch from our previous row, insert into that back loop, pull through, and we're going to do that for a total of 4. So 4 back loop slip stitches in total. That's my first, here's my second, here's my third, and here's my fourth. Now we should have our 4 back loop slips. Now we're going to do 4 back loop half doubles, so yarn over. And that next stitch is back loop with our first half double. Next stitch is back loop with our second. Next stitch is back loop with our third. And next stitch is back loop with our fourth. And from here we're going to continue to alternate between our back loop slip and back loop half doubles to reach the end of the row. We are back. Our row 2 is complete, and now we're going to get started on our row 3. Now when it comes to doing our odd number row for our almond stitch detail, it's now going to be the opposite stitch from our previous row. So since we ended with back loop slip stitches, this following row is going to start with back loop half doubles, and then we're going to do back loop slip stitches. So from where we're at, to get started on our row 3, we're all going to chain 2 and flip. Now everyone getting started on the row 3 is going to start with 3 back loop half doubles. So yarn over. Into that first stitch is back loop with 1. Into that next stitch is back loop with 2, next stitch is back loop with 3, next stitch is back loop with 4. Then we're going to do back loop slip stitches. So into that next stitch is back loop, yarn over and pull through everything. There's our first back loop slip, there's our second, there's our third, and there's our fourth. And from here we're going to continue to do our sets until we reach the end of the row. Then I'll meet you back. We are back and our row 3 is now complete. So getting started on our row 4, like I said in one of our previous clips, every even number row is going to be exactly the same as our previous row. So since we started our previous row with half doubles, we're going to start off our following row with half doubles. So chain 2 and flip. Then to get started on our row 4, start with 4 back loop half doubles. There's 1, there's 2, there's 3, and there's 4. Then back loop slips. So there is 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we're just going to continue on with our sets to reach the end of the row. Alright, so we are back. Our first 4 rows of our almond stitch are finished. Now from here, it's going to be a repeat of our 4 previous rows until we get a shoulder detail the width that we'd like. So this isn't going to be the entirety of the shoulder, so you can make this as wide or as narrow as you'd like. I'd like for mine to be relatively small, so I'm just going to keep my shoulder detail at 4 rows. But you continue on with these rows until you have the shoulder width that you like, but we have to meet back right after a repeat of our row 4s. But once when we have this completed, we're then going to get started on our neckline. Now from here, we're all going to insert our stitch marker into the 16th stitch from the top. That's going to be roughly 4 inches or 10 centimeters, and we're all going to be inserting our stitch marker into the 16th stitch no matter what size we're making, because we need to leave enough space for the 2-inch collar that we're going to have. Then from here, we're going to get started on our following almond stitch row, which is going to start with back loop slip stitches for everyone. And we're just going to continue on repeating these sets until we have 2 stitches left right before our stitch marker. Okie dokie, we are back. Our first neckline row is nearly complete. Now, I did leave the last 4 stitches right before our stitch marker. I know I said to leave 2, but I just wanted to show you guys that we are going to start our following set per usual, and then into the last 2, we're going to do a decrease. But all I'm going to do is work until I have a total of 2 stitches left right before my stitch marker, so that includes my 2 following back loop slips. Then into my last 2 stitches right before my stitch marker, a decrease of 2 back loop slip stitches. So inserting your hook into that second to last back loop, pull through into that next stitch's back loop, and when we have those 3 loops on our hook, yarn over and pull through all 3. And that is our decrease. So I'm going to get started on my following row, so we're going to chain 1 and flip. Now at the top of our piece, we're always going to do a decrease of 2 for the neckline. So since we're working our way down, we're going to start this row off with a decrease of 2 back loop slip stitches. So into that first stitch is back loop, pull through. Into that next stitch is back loop. When we have those 3 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through all 3. Now for those of you that have my numbers, I have just 1 additional stitch left to do for my back loop slip stitches. And then from here, I'm going to do my next set of stitches, which is my back loop half doubles. So moving forward with these decrease rows, we're going to always do a decrease of 2 back loop slip stitches into the tops of every row. With that, we're going to make sure that we keep track of how many stitches we have for the last set of stitches, because our sets of 4 stitches are still going to be aligned with the previous row. So right now, I'm just going to continue to do our sets, making our way all the way down. So this part is going to be per usual. Then at the end of the row, we're all going to chain 2, flip our work, and get the following row started, making our way all the way down, leaving the last 2 stitches. And then I'll show you guys how we're going to do our following decrease. So we've made our way all the way up with our 3rd neckline row. We're nearly finished. We all should have left the last 2 stitches. And now we're just going to do another decrease of 2 back loop slips together. Now the decrease for this portion is always going to be a decrease of 2 back loop slip stitches. So inserting our hook into that first stitch is back loop, pull through, next stitch is back loop, then yarn over, pull through all 3. And now our 3rd row is complete. Let's just get started on the 4th row, so chain 1 and flip. So what we're going to do from here is start this row off with a decrease of 2 back loop slips. So insert, pull through, next stitch is back loop, yarn over, pull through all 3. So from here, all we're going to do, since this is an even number row, we're just going to continue on with this row, basically doing what the last row stitches look like. So as an example, my first few stitches that I have right here look like back loop slips, so I'll be doing back loop slips. Then on top of that, it looks like back loop half doubles, so I'll be doing back loop half doubles there as well. We're just going to continue to repeat these 4 previous rows until we have a neckline portion that can reach 2 inches past mid-chest. And we're making sure that it's 2 inches past mid-chest, so that when this piece is completed, we will have enough space along the neckline for the collar. But either way, I'll meet you guys back right after we finish up a repeat of row 4, and then we can get started on the other side. Alright, we are back. The first half of our neckline is complete. Now, I have a total of 20 rows. My width is roughly 5 inches or 13 centimeters. And now from here, we're basically going to mirror everything we did here on the other side. So since we all should be along the bottom, we're all going to chain 1, flip our work. We're going to do our almond stitch, making our way all the way up, leaving the last stitch. But before we get started on that, we're going to want to make sure that we're inserting a stitch marker into the top of this last row right here, so that we know where the point of our neckline is going to be. Alright, so we are back. We've made our way all the way up with our first increase row, and we all should have left our last stitch. Now into that last stitch, we're all going to do an increase of 2 back loop single crochets. Now we're going to be doing back loop single crochets along the top of our neckline, similarly to how we always did a decrease of 2 back loop slip stitches along the top of our neckline, to make sure that the width of this side of the neckline is roughly the same as this one. So into that last stitch, we're going to insert into that back loop, with 1 single crochet, and then into that same last back loop with a second single crochet. And since this is the first row for this side of our neckline, be sure to insert your stitch marker into the top of this row so we know what the point of our neckline is. Then from here, we're going to chain 1, flip our work, and start off our following row with an increase of 2 back loop single crochets again. So into that first stitch, insert with 1, into that same first stitch, insert with a second back loop single. Then from here, we're going to continue on with our piece. So the next few stitches are going to be back loop slip stitches, back loop half doubles, then continue doing this till you reach the end of the row. And that's basically what's going to be done on this side of the neckline. So what we're all going to do is just continue to repeat the same almond stitch rows that we've been doing. But now into that top stitch, we're always going to do an increase of 2 back loop single crochets. We're just going to continue to do those rows until we have the same amount of rows as decreased rows that we have for our neckline. And then once we do, I will meet you guys back so we can get started on the shoulder, but a really quick tip, we will be ending along the bottom. So we are back. The increased side of my neckline is complete. Now I have a total of 36 rows. My width is now roughly 9.5 inches or 24 centimeters. And now from here, we're going to get started on our second shoulder. So what we're all going to need to do from here, since we all should have actually ended along the bottom, what we're going to do is just take our hook out, but we don't need to do a chain up of 1 and cut. We're just going to take it out for now. And then we're going to insert our hook into the top corner stitch of the neckline. Once our hook is into place, we're then going to make a chain 16 because we skipped a total of 16 stitches here. And then once we have our chain, do a chain up of 1 and cut. Then when we do that, we're going to reinsert our hook into the bottom corner stitch, so back into our working yarn, and then do our following almond stitch row. So as you guys can see, I already have my chain all finished up. So I'm going to reinsert my hook into the bottom corner stitch, so into my working yarn, and then we'll just do the first few stitches together. So since the shoulder detail that we're about to do is going to be done exactly the same way as the first one that we did when we got started on our piece, it's just going to be our almond stitch rows with no increases and no decreases. So this is going to be pretty simple. All we're going to do is get started on our following row. So chain 1, flip your work. Then it's going to start with 4 back loop slips, then switch out to 4 back loop half doubles, and then we're just going to continue to alternate, making our way all the way down, including into our chain. Then at the end of the row, we're going to flip our work and then do our following almond stitch row, and then just continue to do our almond stitch rows with no increases and no decreases until we have the same amount of rows as our first shoulder portion. And just as a really quick tip, this shoulder portion that we're about to do should have the same amount of stitches as chains that we made when we got started on the entirety of our piece. Once we have that all finished up, I will meet you guys back so we can get started on the side panel. We are back. I have just finished up the second shoulder portion and we are all done with this main detail portion for the front panel. Now from here we're going to get started on the side panel, but right before we get started on the detail, we're going to have to do a prep row. It's just going to be a row of back loop slip stitches and back loop single crochets just to help even everything out. So it's going to be done pretty much the same way as we've done all of our other rows. So we're going to chain 1 and flip our work. So all we're going to do is put back loop slip stitches on top of the half double crochets from our previous row, and then back loop single crochets on top of the slip stitches from our previous row to kind of help even out this edge. So we're all going to start with back loop slip stitches. So finding that first stitch, we're still going to be working in sets of 4. I'm going to do 4 back loop slip stitches. There's my 4 back loop slips, and now I'm going to do 4 back loop single crochets. So doing that together, just find that first stitch, insert, pull through 2. There's our first back loop single. Let's do another one. That next stitch, pull through 2. Next, pull through 2, and then my fourth, pull through 2 for my back loop single crochets. And we're just going to continue to alternate between 4 back loop slip and 4 back loop singles to reach the end of the row, and then I'll meet you back. Alright, so now our prep row is complete. If yours is not completely straight, that's fine. As you guys can see, neither is mine. It's just to help us even out a little bit more than what it actually was. Now what we're going to do from here is get started on our side panel stitches, which is the moss stitch. So from where we're at, we're all going to chain 2 and flip our work. Now that first chain is going to count as our turning chain, and that second chain is going to count as a chain, and we're going to flip our work. Now what we're going to do is skip that first stitch from our previous row, and then into the next, insert with a single crochet. So skip the first, into the next, and single crochet, and all together we should have our first chain space and our first stitch. So all together we should have 2 stitches so far for this row. Again, chain 1, skip a stitch, into the next, insert with a single crochet. Now all together we should have 1 chain space, a stitch, a second chain space, and a stitch. So far 4 stitches for this row. From here, all we're going to do is just chain 1, skip a stitch, and single crochet into the next to reach the end of the row. So just to do one more set of stitches together, chain 1, skip a stitch, and single crochet into the next. And I'll meet you back at the end of the row. We are back, and we have just made our way all the way down with our first moss stitch row. Now what we're going to do from here is basically a repeat of our previous moss stitch row. So just to get it started, anytime we're starting a moss stitch row, we're going to chain 2. That first chain is going to count as our turning chain. That second chain is going to count as a chain, and flip our work. And all we're going to do, just like how we started our previous row, is skip that first stitch from our previous row, and then into the next, which is a chain space, we're going to single crochet. So we're going to skip 1, into that next chain space, go ahead and just insert your hook into that entire stitch with a single crochet. Now so far for this row, we should all have 2 stitches. Again, chain 1, skip a stitch, which is a single crochet from our previous row, into the next, which is a chain space, insert with a single crochet. And now continue this to reach the end of the row. Alright, so our second side panel row is complete. As you guys can see, our moss stitch is starting to take form. And all we're going to do from here is basically just repeat our previous row until we get a shoulder portion that can reach 2 inches past the tip of our shoulder. So as a sizing tip, just make sure that the middle of our neckline is at the middle of our chest when we're measuring this up to ourselves, and then just continue on until we have our 2-inch drop shoulder. And I'll meet you back when we have an even number of rows. That even number is including our prep row that we did, and then do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then I'll meet you back. We are back. Our side panel is complete. I now have a total of 10 rows for my side panel. This is roughly 2.5 inches or 6 centimeters. Or my total width is roughly 12.5 inches or 32 centimeters. Now we're going to repeat everything that we did here on this side, starting with our prep row. Getting started on this prep row, if you guys remember, we started off our very first almond stitch row with slip stitches. So getting started on this prep row, we're going to want to make sure that we're doing our back loop single crochets on top of our back loop slip stitches, and then back loop slip stitches on top of our back loop half doubles. So the idea is going to be exactly the same, but the stitches are going to be switched. But once when the prep row is completed, then it's going to be an exact repeat of our moss stitch rows for the same amount of rows. Once we have the same amount of rows, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then I will meet you back. Alright, so we are back. The entirety of our front panel is complete, and I have a total of roughly 15.5 inches or 39 centimeters. Now from here we're going to get started on our back panel. Now the back panel is going to be done just all of moss stitch rows, so it's going to be pretty simple, and I actually already have the entirety of my back panel finished up, so I'm just going to do a small sample size with you. So getting the back panel started, we're all going to start by making a chain for the same amount of stitches that we have for our last shoulder row. Now it should be an even number for everyone, no matter what size we're making. And for those of you that have my numbers, I had a total of 76 stitches for my last row. So for my back panel, I made a chain of 76. But like I said, this is a small sample size. Now once we have our chain, we're going to block off that last chain and do a chain 2. That first chain is going to count as our turning chain. That second chain is going to count as a chain. Then from here, we're going to single crochet into the 4th chain from our hook. So all together, we're going to count 1, count 2, 3, which is the chain that we blocked off, and then 4, we're going to insert our hook into that 4th chain. So bring your hook back into that 4th chain with 1 single crochet. Now all together, we should have our first chain space and our first single crochet. So far, a total of 2 stitches for our row 1 for our back panel. And from here, it's going to be our regular moss stitches. So chain 1, skip a stitch into the next, insert with a single, chain 1, skip a stitch, and single into the next, and continue this to reach the end of the row. Now, I am already at the end of my row because I'm doing a small sample size with y'all. So once we reach the end of the row, we're just going to do more moss stitch rows. Just to get the following row started, which we should already know how to do, we're going to chain 2. That first chain is going to count as our turning chain. Second chain is going to count as our chain, and flip our work. Then skipping that first stitch, which should be a single crochet from our previous row, we're going to insert into that next stitch, which is our chain space, and insert with a single crochet, giving us our first 2 stitches for our row 2. And from here, continue to chain 1, skip a stitch, and single crochet into the next to reach the end of the row. And that's basically it. We're just going to continue to repeat this moss stitch row with no increases and no decreases until we ultimately have the same amount of rows as we have for the front panel. And once we have the entire width of our back panel completed, do not do a chain up of 1 and cut because we can just work straight into the shoulder seam from there. Alrighty, so the entirety of our back panel is complete. We did not do a chain up of 1 and cut right after we finished up our last row, and now we're just going to place the front panel on top of the back panel, and then we can seam everything together. Alright, so we have placed our front panel on top of our back. Then we're going to insert our hook into the top corner stitch of both the front and back panel, and then we're going to pull through and do a chain up of 1 to secure. And now we're just going to single crochet in through both the front and the back panel at the same time. So all we're going to do is find that first side row within the front panel and insert in through that top loop. Find that next side row within the back panel and insert in through that top loop, and now we're just going to single crochet around everything. So this is just going to be a single crochet into every side row. Doing the next one, finding our following side row, which is this one for me, I'm going to find that top loop and insert my hook. Then into that next top loop, which is this one for me, I'm going to insert my hook in through there and insert with a single. And that's pretty much it. We're just going to continue to put one single crochet into every side row, making sure we're working in through both the front and the back panel at the same time. And then within the front panel, we are going to run into our side almond stitch rows as well. That's still going to be one single crochet into every side row. Then once we don't have any more side rows left to work into, do a chain if we want to cut, and then repeat everything we did here on the other shoulder. We are back. We have just finished up both of our shoulder seams and now are ready to seam up the sides. So what we are going to do is make sure that our work is still flipped wrong side out, meaning the seams that we have for the shoulders is along the outside. Then from here, we're going to insert our stitch marker into any stitch that we'd like from the top, the width that we'd like for our armhole to be. Now for this style, we would like for this to be a comfier fit, so I would suggest to insert your stitch marker right at about mid-breast, but if you would like yours higher or lower, that's completely fine. Just keep in mind that we will have a little armhole band to fill that in as well. I have actually inserted my stitch marker into the 38th stitch from the top. That's roughly 9.5 inches or 24 centimeters. And now from here, we're going to insert our hook into the bottom corner stitch of both the front and back panel. Now this side seam is going to be extremely similar to how we did our shoulder seam. So it's just going to be one single crochet into every stitch, working in through both the front and back panel at the same time. It's just going to be a little bit easier because now we have actual stitches to work into. So we're going to pull our yarn through and do a chain up of 1 to secure. Now just to do the first few, we're all going to start by finding that first stitch into the front panel, insert your hook, first stitch into the back panel, insert your hook, and we're going to single crochet around everything. And just to do one more, next stitch into the front panel, insert, next stitch into the back panel, insert, and single crochet, and that's it. We're going to continue doing this until we reach our stitch marker. When we do, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then repeat on the other side. We are back. We have just finished up seaming our sides, and now we're going to get started on our armhole detail. So first things first, we're all going to make sure that our work is flipped right side out, meaning all of our seams are now flipped along the inside. Then from here, we're going to be inserting our hook into the stitch that we have that's nearest to our side seam along the armhole, and then we're going to start by making a chain the length that we'd like for our armhole detail to be. Now I would like for mine to be just about 1 inch or 2 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain 5. Now that we have our chain, we're going to do our first row, so start by blocking off that last chain and do a chain 1. Now that chain 1 does not count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Then from here into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, we're going to insert with a slip stitch. So go ahead and insert. When we have those 2 loops on our hook, yarn over and pull through everything on our hook. That's our first slip stitch, and continue with 1 slip stitch into every chain. And same rules apply for these slip stitches. Make sure we're not tugging too tightly after every stitch, otherwise the following row can be too tight to work into. Now we've just put 1 slip stitch into every chain, now we're going to connect it into the base. So how we're going to do that is start by finding that next stitch into the base and insert into that stitch with a slip stitch, so pull through everything. Now that slip stitch into the base doesn't actually count as a stitch, that's just to connect, and then we're going to work our way up to the following row. Now into that next available stitch that you have, insert into that stitch into the base with another slip stitch. That slip stitch still does not count as a stitch. Flip our work and then put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. So just as a refresher, find that last stitch from our previous row, knot those slip stitches into the base, insert into that back loop, pull through everything, and that's it. We're going to continue with 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. Then at the end of the row, chain 1, flip our work, put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch again, and then I'll meet you back at the base so we can connect it together once more. Now we should all have 1, 2, 3 rows nearly complete. Now we're going to connect it into the base. So finding that next available stitch into the base, insert with a slip stitch. That slip stitch doesn't count as a stitch. Then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that next stitch into the base. Flip our work and then put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, and that's it. We're just going to continue to repeat our 2 previous rows, making our way all the way around. When we don't have any more stitches left to work into, I'll meet you back so we can seam everything together. Alrighty, we are back. We've made our way all the way around with our back loop slip stitches, and now we're going to seam it together. What we're going to do is make sure that our work is still flipped right side out, right side up, because this is going to be an outside loop slip stitch seam, which just looks like another back loop slip stitch row. Then we're all going to be inserting our hook into the corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. Then we're going to yarn over, pull through everything on our hook, And let's start by doing our first outside loop slip stitch seam by finding our first available stitch into the front panel and insert only into that front loop. Find that next available stitch into the back panel and insert only into that back loop. Then when we have these 3 loops on our hook, yarn over and pull through all 3 of those loops. Let's do that again. Into that next stitch into the front panel, insert into that front loop. Next stitch into the back panel, insert only into that back loop. Then yarn over, pull through everything on our hook, and that's it. We're going to continue doing this until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then repeat everything we did here on the other side. We are back. Both of our armhole details are complete and now ready to get started on our collar. So first things first, we're going to make sure that our work is still flipped right side out, right side up, and then we're going to be inserting our hook into any one of the side rows that we have along the back panel. Then all we're going to do is a single crochet row, and we're going to be putting 1 single crochet into every side row. When we're working into the front panel, we have some regular stitches to work into, so just 1 single crochet into each of those. Then continue to put 1 single crochet into every side row until we reach our single crochets again, then just 1 single crochet into each of those. But making sure that we are still inserting our stitch markers into our 2 side rows that we have, because we are going to need to know exactly where the middle is when we're doing our following rows. But go ahead and get this first row completed. When we don't have any more side rows left to work into, slip stitch into that chain space, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then I'll meet you back so we can do the following row for our collar. Alright, so we are back. Our first single crochet row along our neckline is completed. Now we're going to do our following row of the neckline, which is a half double crochet row. So we all should have cut right after our single crochet row. Now from here, we're going to make sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up. Then with our 5mm hook, we're all going to insert our hook into the stitch that's nearest to our 2 middle stitch markers, but to the right of that right stitch marker. And then we're going to insert our yarn onto our hook. We are going to pull through and do a chain 2. Now that chain 2 does not count as a stitch, we just need the height, and we're actually going to start off this row with 1 half double crochet into the same stitch that our chain 2's in. So yarn over into that chain 2 stitch with a half double crochet. Then we're going to do a decrease of 2 half double crochets into our 2 middle stitches. So go ahead and take out your stitch marker for now. And into the following 2 stitches, we're going to yarn over into that next stitch, which is our first middle stitch, pull through. Then into the stitch right after that, which is our next middle stitch, pull through for a total of 4 loops on our hook, then yarn over, pull through all 4, and don't forget to insert your stitch marker into the top of that stitch so that we know that that is the middle stitch. Then from here, we're just going to be putting 1 half double crochet into every stitch, making our way all the way up and around. When we made our way all the way around and don't have any more stitches left to work into, I'll meet you back. We are back and our half double crochet row is complete. So right after we have slip stitched into that second chain that we made, what we're going to do from here is chain 2, and then in the same direction that we're working in, we're going to work our first ribbed row. So doing the first post stitch for this row is actually going to be a decrease. So let's do this together. I'm just going to start by taking out my stitch marker because we do not need it right now. And what we're going to do is chain 2. Now that chain 2 doesn't actually count as a stitch, we just need the height. And now we're going to do a decrease of 3 stitches. I don't really know what to call it because it's going to be a half double front post and then a half double. So let's do this together really slowly. What we're going to do is yarn over, making sure that we're working in the same direction that we were working into for our previous row. Inserting our hook into that next available stitch, we're going to insert and pull through for 3 loops on our hook. Then from here, we're going to yarn over, and then we're going to insert our hook into our middle stitch as if we were doing a front post double crochet. So doing this together, we're going to identify where our middle stitch is. This is the middle stitch for everyone. It should be our decrease underneath the body of that stitch. We're going to bring our hook underneath the body of that stitch, slide it underneath and through the other side. Then we're going to yarn over and pull through for a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops on our hook. Then from here, we're going to yarn over, and just into that next available stitch, we're going to insert our hook, then yarn over and pull through for now a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 loops on our hook. And from here, all we're going to do is just yarn over and pull through all 7 of those loops at the same time. So we're going to pull all the way through to get just one loop left on our hook, and don't forget to insert your stitch marker into the top of that stitch so that we know where the middle stitch is. So as you guys can see, this is our decrease. So let's do the next stitch together, which should be a regular front post double crochet. So we're all going to yarn over. Into the body of that next available stitch, we're going to bring our hook down, underneath the body of that stitch and through the other side, then yarn over and pull through for 3 loops on our hook. Then we're going to double crochet per usual, so yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. That is our first front post double crochet. Then right after our front post double, we're all going to do a half double crochet, so yarn over. Into that next available stitch, insert, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 3, and that's it. From here we're going to alternate between a front post double and a half double crochet, making our way all the way around, so let's just do the next few sets together as well. So yarn over. Into that next available stitch that we have, making sure that we're not working directly into that next half double crochet, because this half double crochet counts as that stitch. We're going to bring our hook underneath the body of that stitch, through the other side. Then yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. That is our front post double. Then yarn over, preparing for a half double crochet now, into that next stitch and insert with a half double crochet. And that's it. From here, just continue to alternate between one front post double and one half double, making our way all the way around. Now once we have made our way all the way around, I will meet you back once we do our last front post double crochet for the row. Now that could be into the last stitch or into the second to last stitch. That really just depends on how many stitches you have for this half double crochet row. Neither are wrong. Either way, I'll just meet you back then. And just as a really quick tip, we are all going to want to make sure that we're using a loose grip for this, because if we don't, then our work will start to curve, which is fine. It'll naturally happen anyways, but we want to just help that out a little bit more. So we've made our way all the way around with our front post and half double crochet stitches, and I have done my last front post double crochet. Now from here, since we want this side to mirror this side, I'm just going to connect it into the base. But as you guys can see, I do have one additional stitch, which we would typically do a half double crochet into the top of that stitch, but since we don't want that, all I'm going to do is just skip that and then slip stitch into that second chain, just like that, and then do a chain up of 1 and cut. And then we're going to reinsert our hook into the back panel, and then we can just continue on with the rounds from there. So getting started on our following row, all we're going to do is take a look at the back panel. We're going to make sure the work is flipped right side out, right side up, and inserting our hook into any stitch that we have within the back that's nearest to one of our front post double crochets. Now this is the one that I like, so I'm just going to insert my hook in through there. And then from here, we're just going to extend our previous row's front post double crochets until we reach our middle stitch. So we're all going to start by inserting our yarn onto our hook, pull through, and start with a chain 2. Now that chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch, we just need the height. And then starting with that front post double crochet, which it should be a front post double for everyone, we're going to yarn over and insert our hook underneath our previous row's front post double crochet to extend the stitch to get some really pretty ribbing, and do 1 front post double. Then yarn over into the top of that next stitch, insert with a half double. And we're going to continue to do this until we reach our second to last front post double crochet that's nearest to our middle stitch. So as you guys can see, this is my middle stitch. Since we're working in from this direction, this is my last front post double crochet, and this is my second to last front post double crochet. I will meet you back once we're worked into that second to last front post double crochet, and then we can do our decrease together from there. Alrighty, so we are back. We've made our way all the way down with our half double and front post double crochets, and I have just worked into my second to last front post double crochet. Now what we should all have is our half double crochet, a front post double crochet, technically our chain 2, but it doesn't count as a stitch, and then right next to that should be our middle stitch. So what we're all going to do is a decrease of 2 half double crochets. So since everyone's last stitch should have been a front post double, we're all going to yarn over. Inserting our hook into that following stitch, pull through. Into the stitch right after that, pull through. When we have those 4 loops on our hook, yarn over and pull through all 4. And now from here, we're going to do a front post double crochet into that middle stitch. So we're going to skip over that chain 2 because it technically didn't count as a stitch anyways, but it is going to feel like we're skipping over a bunch of stitches. And then insert our hook underneath the body of that decrease. Now, as a really quick tip, if you want to, you can just insert your hook underneath the entire cluster of that decrease. But what I think looks better is just finding these post stitches. Here's 1, 2, 3, and then just inserting our hook underneath that middle post. So insert and then through the other side, just like that. Then yarn over, pull through, and front post double per usual. So pull through 2, and don't forget to insert your stitch marker into the top of that stitch. And that is our middle stitch. On the other side of our middle stitch, we are going to do a decrease of 2 half doubles, kind of like how we did on this side as well. So what we're going to do is yarn over, insert your hook into that next stitch, pull through, stitch right after that, pull through for 4 loops, then yarn over, pull through all 4. And now that the decrease is completed, we're going to do our following front post double crochet. So yarn over, into that next available stitch, making sure that it's a front post double because we do need the ribbing. We're going to insert, pull through, and front post double per usual. Then from here, we're going to continue to repeat our half double and front post double, making our way all the way around. Once we don't have any more stitches left to work into, slip stitch into that chain 2 space. Then it's going to be a repeat of this row. So just to make sure that we all have it down, get started on the following row together. So we're just going to be extending our previous row stitches, making our way all the way down, and I'll meet you back once we're worked into our second to last front post double crochet that's nearest to our middle stitch. So we are back. We have finished up our row 4 and have started our row 5 with our half double and front post doubles, that is per usual, and we have stopped right when we worked into that second to last front post double crochet. So as you guys can see, this is my middle stitch. This is my last front post double crochet, and I'm worked into my second to last. As a really quick tip, this is going to look like our last front post double crochet, which technically it is, but as you guys see, this front post double crochet does not have a stitch that reaches the top. This is the last front post double crochet that has an actual stitch to work into, so this one counts as our front post double. What we're all going to do from here is basically what we did from our previous row, is a decrease of 2 half double, 1 front post double into that middle stitch, and then a decrease of 2 half double, and then continue with our work all the way around. So start with the yarn over, inserting your hook into that next available stitch, pull through, next stitch, pull through. When we have those 4 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through all 4 of those loops, and that is our decrease completed. And now into our middle stitch, 1 front post double crochet, so that is per usual. So pull through 2, pull through 2, and don't forget to insert your stitch marker into the top of that stitch just so we know where the middle is. And then decrease of 2 half double on the other side, so yarn over, inserting your hook into that following stitch, pull through, next stitch, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 4, and then start off the row with a front post double crochet because we need to mirror what we have on this side. So yarn over, into that next stitch with a front post double, which it should be a front post double as well because we do need to keep up with the ribbing, and that's it. From here, continue to alternate between a half double and front post double, making our way all the way around. And then from here, it's just going to be a repeat of this row until we get the collar width that we like. Once we have that collar width, slip stitch into that second chain that we made, and then do a chain up of 1 and cut. Alright, so we are back. The entirety of my collar is complete. Now I have a total of 5 rows, and this is roughly about 1.5 inches or 4 centimeters. And now from here, we're going to finish off the piece with our bottom band. So let's make sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up, and then we're going to insert our hook into any one of the side rows along the bottom. So inserting our 5.5 millimeter hook into any one of our side rows, I just like to insert mine into the stitch that's nearest to my side seam. We're going to do a single crochet row. So go ahead and insert your yarn onto your hook, pull through, do a chain up of 1 to secure, and all we're going to do is put 1 single crochet into every side row. So start by finding our first side row, which is this one right here. I'm going to insert, starting with a single crochet. This is my following side row, insert into that top loop with another single crochet, and that's pretty much it. We're going to continue with 1 single crochet into every side row, and that's every side row for our moss stitches and including our side almond stitch rows as well. Make your way all the way around and then slip stitch into that chain space, and then I'll meet you back. We are back. Our first single crochet row is complete. Our following row is going to be a half double crochet row, so that's going to be fairly simple. After we have slip stitched into that chain space, we're all going to chain 2 and just make your way all the way around, putting 1 half double crochet into every stitch. Then slip stitch into that second chain that we made when we got started on this row, and then I'll meet you back. Alrighty, so our half double crochet row is completed. Now we're going to do our front and back post double crochets to get the ribbing that we want for the bottom band. So once when our work is slip stitched into that second chain, we're all going to chain 2. And we already know how to do our front post double crochets, so just to do that together, we're going to yarn over, finding the first half double crochet from our previous row, knot that chain 2. We're going to bring our hook underneath the body of that stitch, through the other side, pull through, then double crochet per usual, so pull through 2, pull through 2. And now we're going to do our back posts. So that's going to start with the yarn over as well. Then we're going to bring our hook down underneath our piece, in through that next gap, and then over that next available half double crochet, and through the other side. Then yarn over and pull through. Then from here, double crochet per usual, so yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And we're going to continue to do a front and back post double crochet, making our way all the way around, so let's do this again. Starting with our front post double, yarn over, underneath the body of that next half double, do our first front post double. Then to do a back post, we're all going to yarn over, bring our hook underneath our piece, over the body of that next stitch, and through the other side, and pull through 2, pull through 2. And that's it. Continue on with our front and back post double crochets to reach the end of the row. When we don't have any more stitches left, slip stitch into that second chain that we made when we started this row. Then I'll meet you back. We are back. Our front and back post double crochet row is completed, and now from here we're just going to be doing more front and back post double crochet rows. So right after we have slip stitch into that second chain that we made when we started this row, we're all going to chain 2, and just making sure that we're working in the same direction that we were for our previous row, we're just going to extend our previous row stitches. So everyone's first stitch should be a front post double crochet. We are now going to do a front post double crochet into our previous row's front post double crochet, so we get a really pretty ribbing. And now we're going to do our back post, so yarn over into our previous row's back post double crochet. That's going to be done per usual. And that's it. We're just going to continue doing this, making our way all the way around. Then from here, our following rows are going to be a repeat of this row. So just continue to extend our previous row stitches until you get the length of the bottom band that you like. Once when you do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then I will meet you back. So we are back. The entirety of my bottom band is complete. I have a total of 8 rows, that is including my first single crochet row. And this is roughly 3 inches or 8 centimeters. And I did do a chain up of 1 and cut right after my last row. And now that this is all finished up, we are all done. And now the last thing we're going to have to do is just weave in all of our ends. And there you have it. I hope y'all enjoyed the tutorial. Check us out on Instagram, Pinterest, or Twitter. Those links are down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Catch you on the next one. Bye!